What's going on, guys? My name's Chris. I'm with my co-host JP Fluellen, our beatboxer for the day,
Yeah.
and thanks for joining us for another episode of the Success Agent Podcast, where we're going to focus on helping you guys understand strategies to help grow your real estate business while spending less money and less time to do so. Now you can catch us live here on Facebook. Right now we're not live; we're having issues there. And or you can also catch us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, pretty much anywhere. Just do a quick little Google search and you'll find us. Also, take note of our special new logo. Quite awesome. Last week, we had special guest Travis Spears. Travis is the owner and founder of Solar and Electric Company, or Solar Electric Systems, and he specializes in solar power. He's based out of Wyoming. That was actually a really cool episode. I don't know what you think, JP, but I got a lot of insight out of that, and I feel like I know a lot more about solar because of that. And it'll be interesting to kind of see how solar really evolves in the landscape of real estate. So definitely check out that episode when you get a chance. Full of information, especially if you're interested in solar for yourself, or even if your clients have solar, or maybe just get asked about it a lot. Definitely check it out. This week, now it's just JP and myself. We're going to be talking about taking risks to really get the life that you want. Really putting yourself out there and not sitting idly by and just hoping for something to happen. Now, JP, you've been in real estate and entrepreneurship for a long time. Why don't you quickly give us a quick synopsis of your past and what brought you to this point so we can kind of understand, the changes and the evolution of your life and how that's actually affected where you are today.
Sure. So, reality of life, generally speaking, is the world doesn't care about you, or because you're just a drop in the bucket, And when I started off getting into the world of entrepreneurship, I literally didn't know what entrepreneurship was and didn't know why I should care about it. My thought process was always education is the path to success.
Mm-hmm.
The more educated you are, the more success you're going to have. Well, when you finally dig deep into that whole scenario, you realize that if you're always working for somebody else, there's always going to be somebody else ahead of you. And there's always going to be somebody else that's going to tell you what to do. And there's always going to be somebody else directing your life. And so the reality of that struck me early on was, no, I want to be in control of my own destiny. I want to be in control of how much money I make. I want to be able to dictate how that is going to play out. And so I figured, okay, well, the only way that I can do that is through sales. I was always a good salesman. I always was driven by sales. I always knew that sales was the key to, your income is directly proportionate to how much effort you put into it when you're in sales.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be, the best car salesman you want to be, you've got to get customers. If you want to be the best door-to-door salesperson, you've got to get in front of as many doors as humanly possible. And so I always felt like, okay, well, how do I marry these two things between working for somebody and then, having control of my paycheck? Well, I figured, okay, well, if I can get a salary plus commissions, then that gives me that, balance between security and, income potential. Well, so then I was like, okay, well, now I need to be as good as I can be. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to try to get in front of as many people as I can that are better than I am and just mimic what they do. And so when I first started off in sales, I started off at 8 years old with a paper route. I had two routes for the longest time, and then my parents got sick of helping me because they said, well, we're not doing paper routes anymore because we always end up helping you out. And there's always people that end up not getting their paper and they're calling and they're mad and all this stuff. And this was back in the day where you had to go door to door and sell subscriptions.
Mm-hmm.
So on your off days, So in order to grow your paper route, you had to go door to door and ask for subscriptions for more, newspaper. And they stopped doing that now. I think it's all just organic now, just the way that they do it. And so I did that for a couple of years, and then my parents got sick of helping me out, so that ended quite quickly. And and so after I did that, I took a hiatus from trying to do the whole entrepreneurship thing, and then I discovered girls. And so then I'm like, okay, well, girls like guys, dudes with money and cars and stuff like that. So I got to go get, as many jobs as I want, as I need. And so it reminded me of that skit and then Living Color with the Jamaican dudes where they're like, hey man, how many job you got? And they're like, hey man, I got 15 job, and then he's like, oh, I got 22 jobs, man, and then the old guy's like getting ready to leave, and the one dude's like, hey man, where you going? He's like, hey man, I got to go, there's a job opening. And I was like good Lord, like how many jobs do you need? But that got me thinking about this idea of multiple flows of income. Like you just need to have different flows coming from different places. And so I always had 2 to 3 jobs growing up. When I was 17, I joined the military and during the National Guard, and they had this thing called the split option. So you could go to basic one summer and then you do your training the next summer, and then you could have income on the weekends through your drill weekends and stuff. So I always had drill weekend, and I did that for 13 years. And then I always had a full-time job, and then I had a quasi part-time job usually. So, off and on, I had, 3 jobs usually, and my wife was going to school full-time. And so she was like the driven one for education and trying to make sure that piece of it was, that component that box was checked, And so what happened was I got to a point where, I got sick of working all these jobs, and I started doing the math, and the math was just like, okay, if I work part-time 20 hours a week, and I was continuing doing the math, and I was like, that's $300 every 2 weeks. And I felt like I'm worth more than that, and eventually I just said, screw it to the part-time job. I'll just put more into my sales plus base commission jobs. And if I just sold more, I could make that up pretty quickly. Well, you quickly realize that, you're capped out. There's only so many hours in a day, and so I was like, well, okay, well, I either have to get more education or I have to sell more things. And when I got engaged and eventually got married, my father-in-law was a big education guy. And he was always like, well, how are you going to support my daughter? Like that was the whole thing going on in the back of my mind. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to just try to do this education thing. And I ended up doing that for 8 years and still never got my degree.
What?
Dude, I'm not wired for school. Like I would go online and literally like
zone out completely.
I don't get what's going on. This makes no sense.
Uh-oh. We may have lost you.
Oh, there you go.
You're back.
Yeah, sorry. I'm on vacation, so, I have this great unreliable internet. It's fantastic. But if I got closer to the internet, then my kids would be getting involved in this podcast, and it would turn into, days with Barney instead of.
Oh, we could all use that.
Yeah. We could start doing the I love you, you love me thing, and that would just not be fun for our audience. So anyways, all right. So basically like, I just got to this point where I was like, education is just not my shtick. I know I have certain levels of ADHD. I cannot sit in one spot for very long and focus, unless I'm talking. That's why these podcasts work really well. So, so really it's like, I got to this idea that, okay, how am I going to figure out what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What is it that I do really, really well? How do I marry all these things together? And, I didn't really discover this until my sister-in-law literally said, you should go get your real estate license and be the realtor. Because for me, it was always like, I just need something steady, and then when I got this job, I was doing enterprise rent-a-car.
Okay.
And that just was not my deal. I couldn't do it. They wanted 55 hours a week from me.
Yeah.
And, and it's great if you're single and don't have a family. But by this time, I'd already had 3 kids. My 4th one was on the way. And I just was like, I don't like being stuck in the same place for 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then have to do a half day on Saturdays every other week. And it just, to me, it's just too much, it just, and after I was doing the math and just doing, if I wanted some stability, I couldn't move up. And enterprise is really geared towards, you've got to move up in order to be successful there.
Yeah.
You just got to, manager, bigger store, another bigger store. And eventually you're at corporate and you're doing district manager, da-da-da-da-da. And it's about a 5-year path if you do it the way that they want you to. But it just wasn't working for my family. And so I had to come up with different ideas on what was going to work. And this whole real estate gig came up and I was like, dude, I don't know. That's like scary. I hate school and you have to do another week of school. And then when the guy told me, he's like, it's 140 hours. And then you have to go home and study for 2 to 3 hours every night for this test that you're not going to use any of that stuff when you get in the real world.
Yep.
And I was just like, dude, I don't know if I can do that. But then I was just like, I had an interview with a guy at an office and he was telling me, he's like, yeah, but there's unlimited income potential and unlimited write-offs in this business. And so I was like, okay. Well, I made pretty decent money in the sales world back in the day because I had so many jobs growing up, dude. Between 8 years old and the time I got to real estate, I think I had 38 jobs, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a hefty number of jobs, man.
Dude, I wouldn't stay at, because I'd had 3 jobs all the time, So I didn't spend, there was a lot of those part-time jobs. I think I did 1 or 2 weeks. I worked at like T-Mobile for a day. I got hired and then I quit in the same day because what they were paying me and what they wanted me to do, I was like, there's just no way. This is just a complete waste of my time. And I had several resumes out there, and then I got a job at a check cashing place, and they paid me a salary, and I was like, duh. And I did the math and everything, and I was like, yeah, this just makes more sense because it's guaranteed money. I don't have to work for sales, and I wasn't standing on my feet in a mall setting all day long. So anyways, so yeah, I found this real estate thing, and then, because I hated working at enterprise so much, I didn't do nothing for 6 months. Just nothing. Because I was sick of getting up at 6 o'clock, being at work by 7, working until 6 o'clock at night, every day, being completely stressed out, because people, when they want their rental cars, dude, and you don't have a rental car, oh, dude, it's like you're literally setting a match to your audience all day long, You're like, dude, on fire. I didn't mean to, but we don't have anything for you, And so it was like, and this idea of like customer service and like enterprises customer service goes beyond what's reasonable for any human being, in my opinion. And so, but that's their deal. Their deal is like customer service lives beyond the interaction, And so, and sometimes like our own humanity doesn't allow us to think that far ahead. Like we're just like, no, it's just this interaction in front of us. But they're like, no, dude, if you take care of your customer, it's going to live beyond that, just that single interaction. Lost you again.
Yep. There we are.
Hey, so basically it's like they've created this machine of customer service where it's almost like they're doing it on purpose because they know that because they're so good at the customer service piece that they're 10xing their customer returns. have a car for you. And we were doing that on purpose so that we can be super nice to you so that you can say, yeah, they didn't have a car, but they were so nice that they just let me pick something off the lot. And then that creates 2 more customers. So it's like it's ingenious. It's almost like we're cultivating a bad experience to turn it into a good one so that they'll tell 2 more people that our experience was so good because it was bad to begin with, And so it's like, that doesn't always work though. Because if you were to go to like a restaurant and the only way you get paid is through selling food, but then you have to give away half the food every time they come in, and they tell 2 more customers, hey, go to this place, they'll give you half off because it's so horrible. unless they figured out how to get the food cost so low that at half price, they're still making their margins that they need to.
Yeah.
Because at least at Enterprise, they buy all their vehicles, so they own them all. So the cost has already been absorbed from the beginning. And so every time they re-rent that vehicle, it's pure profit anyways.
Right.
So as long as they can get, if they can get 50% of what they pay for that vehicle up front in rent, they make up the rest of it when they go to sell that vehicle. So it's ingenious. So it's literally like they don't have to get like these huge margins, these huge margins in their rental rates, because as long as they can recoup at least 50% of what they paid for it, they make up the profit and then some when they go to sell it as a used vehicle. So it's completely ingenious. So they always win. There's no losing in that game. So it's crazy.
But it just basically drove you to the end because they were overworking you, or just like.
Well, they weren't paying you. I mean, they're making, $95 a day in some cases on some of these vehicles, and they're paying me $11 an hour,
Yeah, there's definitely a cap there.
And then if there's 100 vehicles going out at, let's say the average rental rate is $30 a day, and there's 100 going out, they're making $3,000 a day, in rental, and they're paying me $11 an hour, So they're making 97, probably, what is that, about 75% profit every single day that they've got cars on the road.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was just like, I saw this idea of how they're doing it, and then when my sister-in-law was like, because it was always, anything that was education driven, my wife would always be the one to do it. So, if literally at on top of her other job, and then my sister-in-law, why don't you just go get your real estate license? And I was like, it was a complete shocker to me, because I was like, oh, okay. So got my real estate license, passed the test the first time, because I was just like, you know what? I want one and done, just one and done, because I don't want to do this again.
Hell yeah.
And so I did it, one and done. Didn't do jack squat for 6 months. And then I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to dig in and try to figure out this real estate business. And here we are 10 years later, and I was top 3 in the residential real estate side out of 80 agents at one point, and so now, we're just rocking it out now, dude, just living life and doing real estate, and it's really fun. And now we're really driving this bus on building a real estate team in the area. And that's a whole new venture, because there's not really any real estate teams in our area. So this idea of having a team leader, and then having the team leader has their own agents and stuff like that is interesting in a market where nobody understands what that actually means. And because we have a lot of what they call teams, but it's like 2 people that have just partnered together. There's partnership teams, and then there's husband and wife teams, and then there's a couple brother sister teams. And then there's a couple of family teams where it's a dad and the kids and that kind of stuff, but nothing to the scale of what I'm trying to build.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that was 10 years ago that you made that dive into actual well, into entrepreneurship. I agree with you. I think there's always the big debate between education versus entrepreneurship. There's like two different paths you can take. It's kind of like when you start the game life, like the board game, you can either go to college or you can go get a degree. And it's always looked like you're like risking it if you're just saying, screw the degree. I'm just going to go get a job. um, I feel like life is kind of like that. Of course, you can do both. My background is coming from the education side, where I went to school for 4 years for a nursing degree. Quickly found out I hated nursing, but kind of stuck through it for 2 years on a surgical unit. And then I kind of decided, I always tell people I did like an entrepreneurial free fall. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea what value I was going to provide, and I really didn't have any skills. But I just quit my job anyway and tried to figure it out. It was an interesting year and a half. Definitely learned a lot of skills there. And now I'm finally starting to put those pieces together and creating a real package or a real package or product, I guess, for realtors to help them automate their businesses. And it's amazing just the path it's gone from the education piece to entrepreneurship. And I think the thing that made me want to make that change was kind of what you were saying. Well, it was pretty funny. I worked 32 hours a week. I would not pick up an extra shift because I hated my job so much. I worked the bare minimum, but I wanted more money, but I couldn't figure out a way to do it because I refused to work, or refused to do another shift at the hospital. So I actually tried to make a bicycle, um, basically a bike restoration company where I just buy bikes on Craigslist, clean them up. Most of them just need to be cleaned, and then tune them and then sell them. Profit margins were super low and the work was really high. So I said, screw that. I like biking, but not that much. Um,
Yeah,
and
who flips bikes, dude?
I don't know, man. It was just like this awesome idea, and I love bikes. Like, I still kind of obsess. Like, it's funny when my wife and I are walking down Fort Collins, I'll see like a 1993 Bridgestone MB1. I'm like, oh, check out that bike. And she knows I'm not looking at chicks. I'm just looking at really old bikes. And so yeah, I tried that for about 6 months. Decided it's just the amount of time it took was not worth it. And then I started to do some, digital marketing, website development, all that. And that's actually how we met, through digital marketing. And yeah, it's been a wild ride until someone told me, hey, man, you should just get your real estate license. And I always came from the idea that it's like, oh, no, that takes school. I don't want to go back to school. I already have my nursing license. I don't want to do that. Um, School is bad. And it's like, that was one of the best decisions I made, was just to just sit through the school, through real estate school, and take the damn test, because now I'm qualified to sell homes, which then brings me further into this amazing industry um, of real estate. And that has been the biggest, I think, catalyst towards actually making my entrepreneurship something I'm happy about. Because for the longest time, man, it was just like drudging on, just going through the day, waking up, or like 5 o'clock in the morning, not really knowing why, just continually telling myself I had to, and then just trying to continuously figure it out, which pretty much led me to nowhere. um, so yeah, that was kind of how I got into real estate. And going on to the actual topic of taking that risk, uh, wouldn't you agree that life is just one big risk anyway?
Well, the thing that, well, it's risk and it's fear. The biggest thing for most people is that it's the fear, and I think it's more of, and it's less fear than it is a pride thing. I think it's more
Yeah.
it's pride. It's like, what's getting in the way of your success is your inability to find out that on the other side of fear is freedom.
Hmm.
and really not wanting to take that risk because you're being prideful about it. And
Sure.
I think the problem is that when you're not put in a position that you're forced into, and you have to be the one to take the choice. I mean, think of how quick the Matrix would have been if Neo had just grabbed the blue pill and been like, "Oh, movie's over," because Morpheus is standing there and he's got the two choices. He's like, "You can take the red pill and be revealed all of the secrets behind the Matrix, or you could take the blue pill and then the movie's over and you just go back to your stinking life that sucks and you just hate it and you hate the hours and you're just going to go back to your desk job,
Mm-hmm.
and then, or you can go on this adventure with us and see all of the cool things that you're about to see and do and really make something much bigger than yourself, And I think that's where people are at in this crossroads is that, if I just take a leap of faith, think about all of the billionaires out there that have bankrupt and rebuilt and went bankrupt again and rebuilt. I think, wasn't it Donald Trump that filed bankruptcy like 4 times,
Mm-hmm.
in order to get where he's at today? I know Dave Ramsey filed bankruptcy twice. And now he's, got all of these things, and they went from, because they've been down the path that now they went and made all these mistakes. And now they know the things that they need to do to overcome those mistakes,
Right.
And that's one of the things, that, these learning lessons is you're only going to learn these things through trial and error, and then you can skyrocket those, or you can surpass all of those and, jump across all of these mistakes by learning through how other people made those mistakes by listening to podcasts like this,
Mm-hmm.
where, make sure you have 6 months of reserves like Dave Ramsey talks about. Make sure you have an emergency fund like Dave Ramsey talks about, so that when you do go and do these things and take these risks and things like that, that you're not doing it at the expense of your family,
Mm-hmm.
but yet don't continue to be in this rut of unhappiness and tension because there's people around you that are saying, you can do better. I know you can. We believe that you can. So set yourself up to do those things,
Yeah.
like I think that there's a lot of people out there that, are going to eventually run across this podcast and be like, you know what? I am in the restaurant business. I am in the, retail space, and it sucks because I can only make as many hours a day as I can, or
Mm-hmm.
I can go into management and then they try to add more hours to the day that aren't there for less money because now I'm on salary and they're taking advantage of that,
Mm-hmm. Right.
the whole system is designed for you to fail. They just make it look like it's success because you're getting a steady paycheck. When
Right.
in reality is that what they're doing is making your net worth less, you know. And so, that old ad is true: surround yourself with the 5 people that you want to be the most like, and
Mm-hmm.
you'll become like those 5 people. But if those 5 people are broke and work in the same place you do, well, what do
Oh
you think
yeah.
you're going to be? Broke and working in the same place you do,
Right. Yeah. I feel like that's actually half the battle is surrounding yourself with that community that actually helps bring you up. Because if you're in that same place, we're just going to use the restaurant industry because you brought it up. If you're only hanging out with bartenders and servers and those people are, happy with where they're at, it's really hard to find other people who want something that you want, but maybe you don't know what that thing is. It took me a long time, and I think you're probably figuring out, everyone's figuring out what they really want. But for the longest time, I was just doing this. I was just doing what I was doing just because. I didn't really understand why. And now that I'm actually surrounding myself with people, and it took literally like 3 years to find a good group of people that I can rely on, I can trust, and I can really just speak my mind to. That's been one of the biggest changes for me, is just surrounding myself with those people. And the hardest part for that, or to get to where I'm at now, is finding those people. Would you agree? I mean, I know it's been like 10 years since you made the major transition, but was that like one of the hardest things that you had to do, finding that group of people?
Interesting. When I got in the business, it was um, 2010, and lots of foreclosures, and the industry was a little restless because in Wyoming we just got hit with the recession, in 2010. So it took a couple years for it to reach us.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was lots of foreclosures, people upside down, and we're also a military community. And so people were upside down when they were getting ready to PCS to their next destination. And so for me, it was just really trying to figure out my job rather than trying to surround myself with entrepreneurs. Because I didn't really look at real estate as a business per se when I first got in.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a job that I had control over of my hours. I looked at it as just, my role is a real estate agent, not you own your own business. So I didn't even look at it that way. I didn't even get my LLC until 5 years later, because I didn't know that that's what was the smart thing to do. and so a lot of this stuff I was just fumbling through, picking up little bits of advice and trying to make a paycheck is really what it came down to for about half of my first part of my career. And so I didn't know that there was a way that you can build it as a business. And it's just interesting. Like our area is just weird because you start talking about like, oh, well, you do own your own business. You need to create a business around your real estate career. And they don't really teach that up here. And so I was starting to talk in this like entrepreneurship like way of talking to people, and they're just like, what are you doing? Like, it doesn't make any sense what you're saying. Like, they just didn't understand, like, you've got balance sheets and, advertising expenses, and, you've got pay yourself, and then, do all these different pieces of your business. And it just didn't have any continuity to it when you're talking to people about it. And you're just like, so are you setting money aside for your taxes? Oh no, I just look at whatever's left over and hopefully I got enough in there to pay my taxes at the end of the year. And I was like, dude, that is not the way that you need to do this, or you're gonna the IRS is gonna come knocking on your
the
door.
Hammer, the iron fist of the IRS.
That's right. Or Grant calls it the IR and the S. Because you don't want to get, like the popo coming and knock at your door, like. But it's funny. So I just started breaking my business down into different pieces, and my wife opened me up to this book called Profit First, where it actually breaks down your entire business into 5 different categories, which is awesome. So if you're listening, you guys need to pick up this book. It's by Mike McCallowitz, called The Profit First. And he also has I think it's a Profit First podcast as well. But
interesting.
But it's really good. It breaks down your incomes in income, your operating expenses, your owner's pay account. So owner's pay is whether you have employees or you pay yourself, or however you want to do it. And then you have a profit account, and then you have a tax account. So those 5 different buckets.
Gotcha.
So what's nice is if you have all of the flows of your business going into your income account, you can always see after the year is over how much money flowed in and out of your business.
Right.
And so then what you do is you take your profit account and you disseminate all of your income account, you disseminate all of those out to those 4 basic categories. So the way that he explains it is he does it in a very general way. And then he says, then what you do is you tweak this to whatever's how your business works. So then the first one is your operating expenses. So you have to figure out what exactly is your operating expenses. And, for some businesses, it ebbs and flows by like a lot. So one of the things, like, especially for like a restaurant, if you're running a restaurant, it would be pretty tough to have specific operating expense because of the food. Just
Right.
some months are good months, some months are bad months. So the best thing to do would be like take your highest month that you have in a year. So like take last year and then look at your highest month and use that as a baseline. And then basically, or like in the real estate industry, our costs are pretty specific. So we only incur any costs unless we specifically bring them on, because a lot of our expenses are reoccurring. So a lot of those things are pretty fixed. So it's not going to change much. So you can figure out what that is and then only put that much in that account. So that way, when it goes down to, the baseline $300 to keep the account open, then I usually float a little bit more just so that I know that if there was something else that I wanted to elect to do, that I could already have money in there for that. So what he says is, for your operating expense is 40% of your income. Then your owner's pay account is 35%. So between those two, you have 75%. Then your profit account is 10%. And usually if you can have 10% profit in a business, you're doing pretty good. Some businesses, I saw a guy was telling me he was at 45%, which means that he's not putting more money back into his business to grow it. So usually if you have like obnoxious profit, then you're not trying to grow your business. You're just happy with where you're at.
You're kind of leeching off of it almost.
Yeah. It's like you're using it as a safety blanket.
Yeah.
And then the last one is your tax account, which is 15%. And usually after you've paid all of your deductions, your expenses, all of those things, 15% is pretty good. It's probably pretty spot on because, people say, oh, well, because what they'll say is, if you're not doing any of these things and you're just saying, okay, how much should I stash away for my taxes? They usually say 35%, 30 to 35%. And then that way you have enough cushion in there after you do all of your expenses and everything and all of your write-offs and all that you should have plenty of money in there left over. But for me, then it's like, well, then you're not being very diligent and being very specific in your business to decide exactly how much you need for advertising and expansion and recruiting and, marketing, lunches and creating relationships and all those things. Then you're just kind of winging it from there. That's not really the best way to do it. You don't want to ever tell your accountant that you're winging it, because then they will have a coronary and be like, dude, you can't just wing this. If Amazon was just winging it, they would have been out of business a long time ago.
Right.
So you got to be very specific in how you're, work in these different categories.
So I think that's interesting though. So Profit First is one of your first books. Mine was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, who kind of talks about that cash flow and all, cash flow quadrant. But I think it's interesting because earlier we were talking about how entrepreneurship isn't so much about like the traditional learning methods, going to school 5 days a week and all that stuff. But it's actually not like you stop learning. You just pick the pieces that you need to know at that specific moment. And then ultimately in the end, it's this huge amalgamation of what you've learned and all that knowledge going forward. It's not like you're working towards a degree. It's more so you're just continuously learning and implementing those things that you're learning.
Yeah, it's literally being like a student of your own business.
Yeah.
Whatever your avenue is, whether you're in multi-level marketing or if you're in sales, if you're in online marketing, whatever it is that you're doing, just making sure that you're reinvent yourself.
Yes. One of the dudes I follow, his name's Sam Ovens, founder of consulting.com, full of great information. But when I was going through his mindset training, which is like literally, so the whole course is probably like 30 hours, and the mindset training is 14 of those hours. So he really focuses on the mindset. And one of the things that he talks about is you're constantly reinventing yourself, like you just said. And like every so often you go from, V1 Chris to V2. And so I feel like I just hit my version 2. Buying a new house, actually kind of making some ground with my business. I have real estate to work towards. So I'm hitting V2. And now I'm looking to structure what V3 Chris is going to be. And that's, that could be in like 5 years. Not quite sure. But it'll be interesting to see how this evolution actually just compiles into this ultimate, what I really become. Do you feel like you have those reiterations of yourself where you hit like a new point in your life? This is the new chapter of JP, and I'm on version 3 now. Have you had that? Have you had that phenomena?
Oh yeah. So when I first got in the business, that was, my version 1, and it took me about 4 years to get to version 2. So
Yep.
Version 2 was, I figured out, okay, how to do marketing, how to spend money in the right areas to yield the highest results. And then I had my best year ever in 2014. At that time, I should say. Up until that point, I was just kind of like, just kind of floating and gradually increasing, but it was just by luck and just showing up. And then I really put effort into my business in 2014. I doubled my business that year. And, when you're in sales and you start getting a taste of what you're capable of, that's when the motivation really starts to kick in. So then in 2017, I doubled my business again. And I was trying to start a team and trying to do all these things, but I hadn't really figured it out. And so now I really think I'm on version 3 of myself on my path of really figured out what the right vehicle was to build a team, a platform, and just really trying to figure out, how I can compensate my agents and just really trying to dive into exactly how what that picture looks like.
Right.
And so, and I think, version 4 is going to be a completely different rearrangement of how the whole dynamic works. And, so it's really exciting when you can see those milestones on, the different things you learn along the way. And what's really, really helped build that was through podcasting. I think between podcasts and listening to books and people that you really want to follow that really get you jazzed up and motivated, I think that's been a huge contributor. And then I've had some key players in my life that have really contributed to my overall success as well. And on that note, my book is out finally. It's in Kindle version right now. It's $5.99 on Amazon Kindle. You can get it right now digitally, and then the paperbacks will be coming out here soon. Supposed to be should hit Amazon this week, hopefully.
Nice.
And so we're gonna be doing some giveaways and stuff here in the upcoming episodes. We'll be giving out some books and stuff, and so I'm super excited about that. It's really a book for real estate agents to pick up to give to their buyers on how to behave out there in the marketplace, and just really learning and knowing how to buy a house with the most pleasant experiences known to man, and with some stories and stuff in there about some scenarios, some things that actually happened to me. But we kept all the names out, so to protect the innocent. and
Or not so innocent, but
or
either
whatever.
way.
And so to just give some illustrations on just really having those difficult conversations with your folks, because sometimes it's all about trying to have those relationships, find the right houses, and trying to convey those really awkward moments in a way that they're not going to just go to the next agent and stuff like that. So it really gives it a nice way of presenting that information without feeling like you're being rude about it or anything like that, and just tips and tricks on when your people are out there in the marketplace, and just being able to help your overall relationships with your clients. So
Yeah, awesome. And are we still on pre-order for that, or is that actually you can order it and you receive it?
Kindle is out
Okay.
right now, so you
Okay.
could literally buy it and it'll be on your phone or on your Kindle
Nice.
device right now. So
Nice. Well, just to kind of wrap this up, I think it's funny because we started talking about how entrepreneurship is about risk. And even I've discovered this just in our conversation and just, over the few years. I don't think so much that it's about risk. Maybe initially you need to take that risk to just kind of dive in and be willing to go through the hardship of it. That's the risk. But really, once you actually start going, I feel like the risk actually diminishes because at that point you're being a student of your own business, like we were talking about, and you're just constantly reiterating what you've already been doing, but improving it. Um, so it's almost like entrepreneurship isn't so much about risk, but just being willing to be a student and actually learn and re-implement. Would you agree with that?
I agree. It's yeah, the risk part goes away once
Yeah.
you've taken the dive. It's like if you're jumping off a cliff for the first time, it's super scary and all that stuff. But once you hit the water, you did it already the first time. Now it's just you've already got that experience. So now it's just okay. Now how do I just fine tune the technique in order to achieve the goal much faster?
Right. So you don't just belly flop every single
That's
time.
yeah. Because I would not. You only belly flop off of a cliff once, dude.
Oh, I'm just going to go with never for me.
How about never?
All right, cool guys. We're just going to wrap this up now. JP, how can people get a hold of you?
Best way to get a hold of me is look at the show notes and check out clixo.com/J Fluellen. It's got all my links to all my social network there. And I might follow the Jared James thing and just be like, do a website and be like, connect with JP or something like that and figure out how to do it super simple. Or you can just email me, james.fluellen@gmail.com, or give me a call, 307-772-1184. I think there's a Calendly link in the show notes to set up a 30-minute coaching call with me for free. And we can teach you how to fast track your business through automation and systems. And that's it.
Beautiful. And guys, if you want to get a hold of me, just reach out through this Facebook page, facebook.com/Success Agent Podcast. That'll be the quickest and easiest way, or you can just find my personal Facebook, or you can just email me, chris.successagent@gmail.com. Until then, man, we will see you next week.
All right, man. Peace.